Welcome to Movie Moments. Jake is an ex-Marine with a broken spine. With no funds to enhance his treatment, he's being confined to a wheelchair. He still tries to do everything for himself because he doesn't want to be seen as a weakling. Two men approach him after he's kicked out of a bar. His twin brother who worked for them was killed, so they offer him a chance to take his brother's place at their establishment. In the next scene, Jake wakes up in a tube in space with some others who've been transported from Earth. They're headed for a planet called Pandora. They've been recruited as troopers to work on this planet. Once they land, they get a brief orientation from the head of security. Norman, an avatar driver who knew his brother, shows him to the biolab where their avatars are kept. Their work is to drive remotely controlled avatars created from human DNA mixed with the DNA of the natives on Pandora. Jake starts a video log to document his experiences as expected by all drivers. His avatar looks just like him. It was his brother's, and since they have the same DNA, he matches with his brother's avatar. That's why he was offered the position, because only he can link with his brother's avatar. Grace Austin is the head of the avatar program. She's not happy they brought a twin to fill up the position of one of her best drivers. She storms off to go see Parker, the head of operations. Both of them seem to be on different footing. Apparently, they're on Pandora to find unobtainium, a rare mineral, and the natives are threatening their operations. The Avatar program is a research program designed to help them communicate with the natives, the Omaticaya, but for years they failed to understand them. Jake is super excited to be trying out the Avatar for the first time. Grace still has her reservations, seeing he only read a manual, no form of training at all. They initiate the link process and it's successful. Jake wakes up in his new body and he's over the moon. He can't wait to take it for a test drive. Against the doctor's orders, he leaves the lab for a run. The colonel asks to see Jake. After learning of his marine background, he wants Jake to report to him too. Best to have a soldier like him up close to the natives to know how best to smoke them out. The soldiers don't care about the research, they're only there for unobtainium. It's the first day out in the fields. While Grace and Norm go on with their research, Jake looks around and disturbs a beast which charges at him, but retreats when a much larger beast appears. Jake runs and jumps off a waterfall to avoid being eaten. He gets lost in the forest while Grace tries to find him with the chopper. It's getting late and they are not allowed to fly at night. Grace says he will not make it by morning. Jake manages to light a torch but is almost eaten by a pack of wild foxes. A native, Netiri, jumps in to help. After scaring the creatures away, she turns off his torch. He turns to get it back. That's when he notices the forest glows at night. He follows to thank her for saving his life, but she blames him for making her kill a creature. She says she only saved him because he's brave, unlike the others. He follows her still to ask for help, but she says he should go back. Just then, little creatures she calls the spirits of the forest surround Jake. As she sees that, she tells him to follow her. Soon, other natives surround them to kill Jake, but she intervened, saying there's been a sign from Awa, so they take him along. Jake is taken to the sacred tree where they live. The head of the clan, who happens to be Netiri's father, contemplates on killing him. Jake goes for a handshake, but he almost gets killed. Netiri's mother stops them. She interprets the will of the spirits and tells her daughter to teach him their ways. That night, Jake is revived back to his body. He tells them all that happened and they're happy they seem to have made progress with the natives. Jake also reports to the colonel without the knowledge of Grace. Grace and her team prep him about the natives before sending him back in. He keeps learning all he can from the natives and reports to base. Grace and her team fly out to a private lab while he continues his lesson with Netiri. He managed to talk them into letting Grace into the village. She was happy to meet them once again. Jake is fascinated by the life form day after day. He asks Grace what happened at the school. She explains Netiri's sister with a few others set a bulldozer on fire and ran to the school to hide. The troopers followed and killed them together with other students at the school. Grace managed to save some students, but they never returned. Since then, they've been at war. Jake makes his first kill as a native, and Netiri says he's ready. He's taken to capture his first banshee. According to their custom, a warrior must tame a beast and become its rider. Jake manages to get one for himself. Netiri is so happy for him and both start getting along so well. Jake is beginning to like the new world more than his. The colonel asks why he hasn't reported to him in so long. He also says everything is ready for the surgery to get his legs back as per their agreement. But Jake says he'd rather stay for one last ceremony with the natives where they'll accept him as one of their own. The natives conduct a ceremony and they all accept him as one of them. Netiri takes him to the sacred grounds where they pray. Only natives are allowed there. Now all that's left is for him to choose a female to be his mate. He says he chooses her. That night they mate together. The next day, while Jake is yet to jump into his tube, Netiri wakes up to the sound of bulldozers marching towards them. Jake wakes up and tries to stop the troopers, but they continue and bulldoze the entire place. The colonel recognizes Jake's avatar, fighting off their bulldozers. The natives decide to attack. Grace and Jake tells them not to or they'll die. Sute, who was betrothed to Netiri after realizing they mated together, attacks Jake. Jake subdues him and asks they listen to what he has to say. As he's about to explain himself, the colonel arrives at the private lab and ends the link to their avatars. Grace tries to reason with them, explaining her discovery on the forest, but the troopers don't take her seriously. Thanks to Jake's blog, where he said there's nothing the humans have that they need enough to give up their home. The natives have already killed the men and destroyed the machines that bulldozed their sacred trees. This pisses Parker, who gives Colonel permission to launch at the home tree, and he's free to kill anyone or anything that stands in their way. Grace is informed about this and immediately goes to Parker to convince him otherwise. He gives them 1 hour to get the natives out of there, or else he goes on with his plan. Jake and Grace link back to their avatars and warn the Almatikaya of what's coming. He also confesses he was sent to study them so they would know how to attack them. Netiri is pissed off and says he will never be one of them. They bind them and prepare to attack. The colonel and his fleet soon arrive. When he sees Jake and Grace bound, he gives the orders to launch the gas bombs to smoke them out. The natives attack, but their spears are nothing compared to the heavy gear. The colonel, seeing they won't move, launches rockets at them, and that's when they flee. Netiri's mother frees Jake and Grace, asking they help save them, if truly he is one of them. After the tree is brought down, the natives are left helpless and weeping. Netiri finds her father hurt. He hands her his bow, urging her to protect their people before he dies. Jake finds her, but she sends him away to leave her and her people. Jake and Grace are pulled out of their links and held hostage. One of the troopers helps them escape. They take one tank with them containing their tube. Grace is hurt in the process. Jake links back to his avatar. His banshee finds him and they go in search of the greatest banshee that has never been ridden. He succeeds in taming the beast and goes to Netiri and her people, gathered at their only sacred tree, Awa. The people welcome him because he rides the forbidden beast. He asks for their help to save Grace. The Omatikaya tries their best, but Grace's wounds were too great to be healed. Jake charges the people to ride out to other clans and asks they join them in fighting the troopers. The other clans respond and their numbers increase by the day. This catches the radar of the troopers, who prep to attack before they come. One of the doctors back at the camp informs Jake of the colonel's plans. They know they don't stand a chance fighting against guns and machines with arrows, but Jake believes they'll succeed. He goes to pray to Awa, asking for a little help. The troopers fly out the next day against the natives. They plan to bomb the tree of Awa. The battle begins and it's a massacre. The natives stand no chance. With the natives retreating, the troopers prepare to drop the bomb on Awa. That's when she intervenes and sends all creatures of the forest to attack. This gives the natives courage to keep fighting. Jake manages to bring down the planes. Now all that's left is the colonel. He goes after the tank Jake's tube is in, but Netiri intervenes. He kills the beast and almost kills her when Jake steps in. He and Colonel fight and he almost gets killed. Luckily, Netiri shoots the colonel. Jake wakes up in his body and passes out with no air. Netiri rushes and wears him the mask and he regains consciousness. Sute is found wounded in the forest. He tells Jake to lead the people and also requests to die at his hands. Jake refuses at first but then grants his request. The troopers are sent back to their world, only only a few are left to stay. Jake makes his final vlog entry before becoming one of them, as his soul is joined to his avatar forever. The end. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Tune in for more movie moments.